There's a very thin line between anxiety and fear. And the country, I think, is filled with anxiety that is now crossing over into fear because there's an element, I think a lot of people feel we're leaderless in terms of confronting a global war on terror. I think a lot of people want to hear from Barack Obama.
You know, you don't get numbers up at 81% unless you're radically out of touch. And they look at a lot of these Republican candidates saying really stupid things. And then they look at the President of the United States, who's our one commander-in-chief, Willie, being completely disconnected. And they see a war on terror and a country that seems to be completely leaderless. A president that is blaming ISIS on the press, on social media, saying they're just a bunch of bad guys, when Dianne Feinstein is ticking down the list of just how dangerous they are.
The president and the White House would tell you this is not a president who's going to walk around with his hair on fire, and that he's got this, and that there are airstrikes, and they're sharing intelligence, and they're working on this, and he's not going to go out and beat his chest. But when he says things like Republicans and the media need to be careful what they say about ISIS because they risk elevating them and making them think, quote, they're doing something important, I think the people in Paris would say they're doing something important, terribly important. Yeah. The people in Brussels who've been locked in their homes for 3 days would probably say the same thing.
And David Ignatius, Mika, on Friday, responding to a John Kerry quote saying, well, anybody that wants to get a gun can go around and shoot up people. David Ignatius said that's disconnected from reality, too. Not his exact words, but he said this was a very complex operation. This wasn't a guy that woke up one morning and said, I'm going to shoot up some cafes and concert halls. As David Ignatius said, this took a lot of planning. It is an international terror organization. It is, as Dianne Feinstein says, growing by the day. It is not contained. And yes, it can and will strike here in the United States of America unless we have a commander-in-chief that stops blaming it on the media and some zany fringe Republicans.
It was a commando-style operation in Paris. It was very skillfully assembled. It took a long time to put it together. They had the weaponry, they had the logistics down, they had everything down. So let's ignore the fact that some people call it a bunch of guys with guns. It wasn't. But
you say some people. It's the President and the Secretary of State. Those are important.
What Willie was just talking about is a key component in what we're talking about. You cannot come into a city like New York. I came into New York last night. You turn on the TV and you see on the news the New York Police Department, which has the most skillful and thorough anti-terror operation of any police department in the world, conducting a live gun exhibit routine in the subways yesterday. And you imagine yourself, you're sitting there watching TV, just an average citizen. You've crossed the line between anxiety and...
And by the way, Bill Bratton, Mika, came on our show and said they can strike here. Bill Bratton's not doing this because Ben Carson's saying something. Bill Bratton's not trying to save New Yorkers' lives because of the media whipping something into a frenzy. Somebody has to get in front of President Obama that he will listen to and say, you are dangerously out of touch with where intel experts are, police officers are, and 81% of the American people are.
Another reason to stop underplaying it is we're going to need a serious conversation in this country about civil liberties, individual privacy versus collective security. Again, we have got to prepare for that.